Hello, everybody. I'm Gwen Campbell-Mindes. Welcome to Mom's Favorites, Books My Mother Loved, a memorial for my mother who died 2 years ago now. I've been doing this for a while. So, uh, as we return to books that my mother loved, this one is a little different from probably anything that I've done before. Mostly because I haven't actually done a play before. And the book that I'm doing this week, which, by the way, this was apparently a first edition, so I got the brief momentary lecture from my father of, and don't let this get damaged because it is a first edition. The Royal Family, a comedy by George S. Kaufman and Edna Ferber. So, this is a play that it takes place in the 1920s. One assumes at about the same time that the authors were writing. It's contemporary at the time, more or less. And the royal family of this book is the Cavendishes, and they are an acting family. Their father, who died some years ago, and the matriarch of the family, who is Fannie Cavendish, her daughter, Julie Cavendish, her son, Anthony Cavendish, and Gwen, who is Julie's daughter. They're all actors of various stripes. Herbert Dean and Kitty Dean, who are a connection of some kind that I must have missed. Some sort of family connection, cousins or something. They're all actors. And Anthony was trying being in the movies, and when this play starts, Fannie is a much, much older woman. She is an elderly woman, and she has been ill, and she is hoping to, at some point soon, get back on the stage. Because she is an actor of the sort who lives to act. That for her, acting is everything. Being on the stage is everything. That's who she was meant to be. It's her calling in life. It is absolutely everything to her. And her daughter, Julie, seems to be in line with this. And her granddaughter, Gwen, they all seem to be in line with this. At least during the first act. For most of the first act. But the thing is that by the time you get to the end of the first act, Gwen has been given an ultimatum by her boyfriend, because her boyfriend had said, well, my mother wants to meet you, and meeting your significant other's family is a huge deal. It's one of those landmark points in the course of a relationship, when you finally meet the family that, you are considered important enough that the family should know you. And Gwen tries to tell Perry that, well, I have a job, and this thing just came up, and yes, I was going to meet your mother, but this thing came up, and I have to show up for this reading of a play because the author of the play wants to read it aloud to all of us for some reason that none of us understand, because we have no idea what's up with him. Like, they also, when they find out that the author of this brand new play wants to read it to them, they're all completely perplexed, because as actors, they sort of have this horror of the idea of a playwright deciding to peer over everyone's shoulder and try to sort of direct from behind the director, because playwrights have a tendency to try to do that, because, of course, as a playwright, you had a particular image in mind, and if people aren't doing it, then they're doing it wrong. But they're playwrights, not directors. Directors are directors, and not playwrights. And anyways, but Perry is very, very upset with this, and he tells her, look, if, I can't be in a relationship with you if you're not going to be doing this seriously. And it turns into a very, very career versus marriage showdown. That Gwen is basically told, you have a choice. You can be an actress, or you can get married to me and have kids, and so on and so forth. And her mother and grandmother are both shocked. What are you thinking? What are you doing? Why would you do this? You're an actress. You can't just say, oh yeah, I'm going to quit acting because of this man. This is your career and it's your life. And Gwen flails about how maybe I don't want it to be my career, maybe I don't want it to be my life. And Act 1 ends with a bang. Now this is, as you can see, it says this is a comedy by George Kaufman and Edna Ferber. And I can see how somebody would find it funny, but there's a lot of bleak underlying this, because in the second act, all three acts, by the way, take place in the same spot. The scene is the duplex apartment of the Cavendish family. But the first act, is that, and then the second act is the next day. And Act 3 is in exactly the same place, but 1 year later. So the next day, after Gwen has had her freak out and Tony has returned fleeing from some sort of issue that he has caused with some Polish woman when he was out trying to make a movie, the next day they've got thousands of people camped out on their lawn because there's been some kind of massive scandal, and so everybody wants to see them. And Julie, Fannie, our matriarch, is still going on and on about how, when she went out on the boards, she did her job, and she's going to, when she dies, she intends to drop dead on the stage like her husband did. She wants to die nowhere else. She wants her last moments to be on the stage. Julie, on the other hand, is getting extremely stressed because her mother has been ill and is still kibitzing around in the background. Her brother Anthony has showed up and brought the unwashed masses to camp out on their lawn to try to take pictures and gossip and tackle anybody coming in the door. Her cousins or in-laws or whoever the deans are continuing to show up and harass them. Wolf, who is their agent, is going around and around telling them, you need to show up for this and do this, and you have a play at this time. And, Gwen is hiding in her room and refusing to come out, and everything is just really piling on top of her. And then her previous beau from many, many years ago returns, and he shows up at the front door, and in one fell swoop, he solves the issue of Tony, who wants to flee to Europe, and Tony needs his passport to get out of the country. And this man, in one fell swoop, with his connection and his riches, gets Tony a passport. And Tony leaves, and all of that trouble leaves with him. And, and he promises to show up at Julie's play and finally, show up there. And at the end of that second act, Julie kind of seems to have agreed to marry him, seems to have agreed to just, get out. She's going to quit. She's going to leave. She's just, she's just done. And more than that, Julie winds up at one point insisting that, Perry, for God's sake, take her out of this. Take her away before it's too late. Take her or she'll never hear stage again. Take her away. And And, and Julie sort of has her own nervous breakdown saying, you know what? I'm done. We're done. We should all quit the stage. We're going nuts here. We're being crazy. And so the end of the second act involves Julie, basically saying, no, Gwen, you should go. You should marry your boyfriend. You should quit the stage. If you don't want to do this, you absolutely shouldn't be forced to. And you know what? I'm sick of all of this stuff. And you have this massive kerfuffle, which, of course, the final moment of that is actually Julie racing out the door to get to her play on time because she does actually have an evening performance that she has to get to. Act 3 picks up a year later. And everybody seems to have, however briefly, decided that they're leaving acting behind. Tony has run away to Europe, never to act again. And Julie has said, no, I'm done. I'm getting married and I'm going to go traveling. And Gwen has gotten married and she's had a kid. And, and the interesting thing is that Fannie is the only one who's determined to get back on the stage. But Fannie has been so ill that Julie actually winds up pulling over their agent when he arrives and saying, look, she's too sick to go on stage. It will kill her. She's been so ill over the past year. And somehow, over the course of all of this, Gwen's husband shows up, and Julie's fiancé shows up, and it's this moment where Gwen and Julie both sort of make this decision without even really realizing what they're doing, that no, they're not going to leave the stage behind, because Gwen has this nanny and she's, at first thought she'd have no time because she'd have to take care of the baby, but the nanny takes care of everything and she suddenly has nothing to do. And so she decides she's going to take on a role for, a brief period of time. And when her husband Perry smiles indulgently at her about it, it's this moment of these two worlds clashing together, because it's about these people for whom the arts, for whom acting, for whom the stage really, really means something, and it is their life. And these two businessmen that Gwen and Julie, they think they've found somebody, but these two businessmen don't understand what it means to Gwen and Julie to be on the stage. They don't understand that this isn't just something these women are doing to pass the time until they get married or anything else. It's really something that means something to them. And Gil managed to convince himself, the first time Gil had thought, well, I was leaving you to your happiness. But the problem, and, when he says, well, you're unhappy and let me take you away from it. And at that moment, Julie was. And at that moment, she was eager to escape. But when she's had time and some space from the stress, when Tony hasn't been home with 800,000 people on the front lawn, and Gwen has had a year where she isn't in the midst of the craziness, they fall right back into it. And this is a comedy, but it's a comedy that ends with Fannie dying. The last scene of this play is Fannie sitting in a chair and collapsing and dying, and Julie coming in to find her mother dead. And the last scene is of all of these people sort of gathering around, staring in sort of shock and horror at the family matriarch having just died. And there's a lot in this I can see how it would be funny, but it ends on this thunderclap of shock. And I don't know. Maybe you have to see it played to really find it funny. That's a thing that they say about a lot of plays, that you have to see the play to really get it. So, I don't know. Maybe it's that. Anyways, I've just recounted the Royal Family play, and I guess that's all I have time for, so I'll see you all next week.